Good morning. It is Friday, June the 26th, about 11 o'clock a.m. This is meteorologist Shay Gibson bringing you a wind and weather forecast, final forecast for the CORA racing event today starting at 3 o'clock p.m. This is the summer Sailstice race, overnight race, and it will go on until the racers get back. Now, the course that was chosen yesterday was the one with the southerly track, so I'm going to focus on about 15 to 20 miles out offshore for this track. From the start going through the jetties because it finishes just outside of the jetties, which is a good thing. May have some westerly winds to come back into. Let me go ahead and move myself down to the corner of the screen. You can kind of see what's going on here today, the latest visible satellite from GOES 16. And what we're seeing is we have high pressure that's built out here to the west. There's a lot of troughing involved with this because of a front that is sort of sagging down across the South Carolina, North Carolina locales. This troughing is sort of just following along it. Right now we're just seeing high-level clouds, mid-level clouds, but eventually through the day we're going to see some of these lower-level clouds sort of move their way down the coast and form right here along the sea breeze front. Now the sea breeze front today is expected to be rather shallow and limited or pinned to the immediate coastline, and that's where we think the southwest turn will occur. But we do need to watch for storms to start firing off. In this downslope flow, if they come in from the northwest, they tend to hold up a little bit better. They're driven by mid-level winds aloft, and they will overrun the sea breeze and offshore. So there is some possibility for some isolated storms to come through late afternoon to evening. So just to be aware of that strong gusty winds could accompany, nothing severe. I think we're thinking maybe 30, 40 mile an hour winds so far. And that's kind of what the case is going to be. But you can sort of see what's going on here. It looks like the front may be down here. It actually is right up in this direction here. And it's going to push further south, maybe even right over us by late afternoon, which increases the likelihood of storms to maybe 30, 40%. And then this front will retreat up to the north overnight. And that will allow for the zonal flow to resume through the area, the westerly winds, as we discussed in the skippers meeting yesterday. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Wpc Surface Map. We can see that front, as I just explained, with high pressure built down below it. Now always remember, high pressure is clockwise directional winds, so however that front sags is more northwest. We see the front is actually down here now, so that's why the winds are a little bit more northwest to start this morning. We do expect that as the front lifts to the north, that the winds become a little bit more westerly and eventually southwest right along the immediate coast today. If we look forward in time, we go through into this afternoon. We see the front right there, right through the Charleston area, just north of Charleston, with high pressure down below it. And you see that little thin strip of moisture, which represents convective activity or storming that's traveling right along that boundary down through our area. And as we go on through into Friday night, we see that the boundary starts to lift to the north just a tad. It starts to fizzle out even more, and high pressure builds in below it. That is what is going to be driving this west or even west-northwest zonal flow across the area overnight hours, beginning probably sometime after about 9 o'clock p.m. once the sea breeze dies down. If it gets killed by the storms altogether, that northwesterly flow may just hold up, or west-northwest flow may hold up through into the night. Let's take a look at sail flow real quick. Right now we do see the winds are about 6 to 10 knots from the northwest for the most part, except for Folly. A little bit to the south, you may see more of a westerly flow versus northwest across the harbor and through the coastal breaks. If we take Fort Sumter Front Range Light, we'll take a quick look at the model runs. We'll put them all together and just show some of the guidance here. I'm still sticking to my guns for 10 to 14 knots on sea breezing from the southwest this afternoon at the time of the race. Models are undershooting that just a little bit today, except for the Wolf Wharf 2 kilometer high resolution model, which has it pinned right around mid-teens by 3 o'clock p.m. But the yield spread is only about 8 knots, so I think that's going to hold true, about 10 to 14 in the harbor as you're leaving out through the jetties. As you get through the jetties, the winds may lay down a couple of knots, and so we'll see about that as far as when the race actually comes, but just be expecting a somewhat moderate southwest sea breeze this afternoon at the start through the jetties. Once you get outside this evening, by 9 o'clock p.m., winds will start to turn from the west. And that is what a lot of model agreement is on, except for maybe the one in the red here. This is more of a preset model than it is a wind model, so just know that. But as we go through the night, we see that westerly flow holding up 6 to 10 knots for the most part. Now there is a possibility, that's just along the coastline, but if we get off the coast 15 to 20 nautical miles out, we're talking somewhere between, this point, Capers near shore, in the Charleston Edisto buoy, 15 to 20 nautical miles out, we could be seeing a little bit of southwest jetting, like I mentioned last night, between 8 and 11 o'clock p.m. Maybe up to about 12, 13 knots, and then settling back from the west. And the west winds may be a little bit stronger out there, maybe 7 to 11 knots, There may be a little bit of a lull period and then comes back up, but we do see that the west wind for the Wolf-Warf model is actually a little bit higher. So just anticipate seeing a potential for a little bit of a southwest jet, like the green one here, the NAM3 shows between 9 and 11, coming up to maybe about 12 knots or so, and then dying off. I did talk to the Weather Service a little bit ago about this jetting. They're not seeing it out there. That doesn't mean it won't happen, but there's not a lot of indicators that the jetting is going to be that strong tonight, even if it does occur. But the westerly flow will eventually overrun that and overrule all the way across, just because of the high pressure building to the west. As far as the storms are concerned, the Weather Service did mention isolated storms are going to be possible, nothing severe, not on their radar as of yet. We're not seeing anything severe in nature. That doesn't mean it can't change. Downslope flow means look out for shelf clouds, right? Number one, we'll go back to the visible satellite. Watch for shelf clouds coming from inland. If you see a shelf cloud, you'll know that there will probably be some gusty winds right behind that as it goes through. So you might want to drop the jib or lessen your sails, however you want to do it, just until that would pass. But so far we're not seeing it, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. It would be very spotty at that. It might happen right through our area or just to the north. If we look at our near-shore wave prediction system, let's see, last night I was calling for southeast swell at about 2 feet, 1 to 2 feet at 10 seconds. And if we go forward here, let me go back to the 26th, which is today. It looks like this model, now this particular run is now showing more of a southerly wind offshore, but there's still southeast inclination from that primary swell. It looks like there's the primary is dying off and the new primary swell is going to be coming from the south. But if you do get some southwest chop across that, then that could be a little bit bumpy. Right now it's at about 10 seconds, but it could end up being more like 5 to 7 seconds, maybe 5 to 10 miles out, and probably will clean up a little bit further out away from the coastal sea breezing. So we go to near shore wave prediction system here. Let's just want to check buoy 41004. This one's pretty far out, but it gives you a good idea of what we're looking at. So I mean, everything's holding pretty firm, pretty bullish on this 10-second period in the swell where it comes in from the east-southeast. So we can even check that with sail flow by going offshore here, and this is going to be 3 feet. Now this is pretty far out, the Charleston Edisto buoy. We go to forecast, quick look. So we got 3 feet that far out. That's about 50 miles out, 40-50 miles, and that's about 3 feet at 10 seconds. And then as we get a little bit closer in towards Capers near shore, we see 1 to 2 feet at 10 seconds. So this could be a little bit choppier, like I said, 5 to 7 seconds on the period. But I think overall overnight, once those westerly winds start, you're going to have a nice smooth ride out there as you head down the course. If we look at the actual course itself, we do see that course number 2 was chosen. So it looks like everyone's going to go out, unless you change your minds today. We're going to go out to the end of the jetties and then down to the south, and then back up, and this is where it'll finish. Instead of having to come back through the jetties and finish inside, it finishes on the outside. 100 miles total. Best of luck to you, gentlemen. I hope everyone has a good sail tonight. I think that's going to do it for now. Just the 3 takeaways: some somewhat moderate sea breezes to start, get you out of the harbor. And then as you make the turn and start your southward trek tonight, the winds will eventually turn from the west. That hopefully will make your timing a little bit better. And then actually up to the end of the course. Getting back in the morning, looks like still 6 to 10 knots from the west, maybe 8 to 12 as you're coming inside the harbor, just because of that wind is coming from land out through the coastal breaks. And then that'll wrap it up. It'll stay west all the way through about noon on Saturday and start its southwest turn for sea breezes sometime after about 1 or 2 o'clock. And that will do it. Everyone, good luck to you today, and hope to see you soon. Bye.